when the topic was given to me, I was just thinking as to who are the prominent leaders, in the scientific research, and those who have done tremendous work in the field of science. And of course, many names, they came in my mind. And I just jotted down some of the names. And these are some of the scientists who have done tremendous work in their respective fields. Like, for instance, Madame Curie, Rosalind Franklin, Charles Darwin, because I've been a zoology student and I was really fascinated what he has done. And of course, Alexander Graham Bell. Now, these were all the people, those who have done tremendous work in their respective field. Now, I want all the participants to use your chat boxes and tell me as to what are the various qualities you associate with all these leaders. And I'm going to share with you some of the qualities, right? Like, for instance, A stands for purpose, B stands for trustworthiness, C stands for inspirational. If you don't agree with all the above, you can put D. And of course, E means none of the above. All the above is D and none of the above is E. So I will request all of you to please use your chat boxes and share what options do you have. What do you feel so? So I have received 2, D, option D. Okay, Musarrat Parveen, Maitab, D. All right, so, okay, C, inspirational, D and E. No, D and E, they are contradictory. All the above and none of the above can't be. There has to be one, C. Well, thank you. Thank you. By and large, of course, everybody's talking about D, right? That means all the above. All right, I will stop here and I'll move. I completely agree that all the 3 qualities, they are very much required if you want to be an exceptional leader in the field of scientific research. Reason being, purpose is something which actually drives and fuels the scientific research. And some of the examples which I'd like to give you when it comes to purpose is, in 2020, I think it was March, yes, when COVID struck and there was a scare in the globe. Everybody was worried what's going to happen, because we had this experience of 1921, at least, some of the people, those who had remembered that when Spanish flu had hit the globe, close to 25 to 50 million people, that is the rough estimate, had died. And mind you, 100 years back, our population was not like what it is now. And then, close to 50 million people dying. There was an absolute pandemonium. There was a scare in the globe because people were not knowing what's going to happen in 2020. But think about it. Our scientific community, they have done something which was unthinkable. In my career, I had never seen that any vaccine could have been brought about within a span of just 1 year. And that is what our scientists, they have done, right? What would have been the reason why they have done it? The reason was the purpose to save the humanity. And that is why I'm pretty sure all those people, those who are working on this COVID vaccine, they must have worked day and night. And that is how, within a span of just 1 year, we could come about with a COVID vaccine. Now, of course, in the globe, you have got close to almost 15 COVID vaccines from various companies. So this is what I say, purpose actually drives that motivation, which is why most of the scientific communities, they have been completely engaged. Another example, extending this COVID only, I would like to give, see the purpose of our doctors and paramedical staff throughout the globe. People were dying. I know there were so many doctors and paramedical staff, they had not even gone to their houses. They were staying in their hospitals only because they were also scared, one, that they may carry the infection in case they were infected. And of course, they also wanted to attend to all these patients. See the amount of involvement, why that was so. It was only driven because of the purpose, what they were having, right? And in fact, if you see most of the scientific and research, most of the developments, whatever have been happening, even in the field of science and technology, they are basically aimed to improvise the lifestyle of our people, right? I mean, think about it. What was the lifestyle what we were having, say, 70, 80 years back? And what is the lifestyle what we are having now? We have got everything with which we can actually have our better quality of life. So it is the purpose which is driving the scientific community, because of which they even, go beyond the call of the duty. And I mean, if I share with you that if the pictures what I have shown you, what was the purpose of Marie Curie? The purpose was to discover the radioactivity of the polonium and radium, and she devoted her life for that. Secondly, I mean, if you see Rosalind Franklin, she actually discovered the molecular structure of DNA. I mean, today we know that there are purines, there are pyrimidines, there are adenine, guanine, purine, cytosine, thymine, all that. It was only because she discovered that. And now, I mean, where the science has actually reached. Same way, I mean, Charles Darwin, my favorite, I would say, idol, because, I mean, the type of work, what he had done was also tremendous. He actually propounded that theory of natural selection. And we know now today, what is, how the evolution has taken place. Same way, Graham Bell, I mean, what discovery he had done. Today, we are in a position to interact, sitting in far-flung areas. It's only possible because initially, of course, he discovered the telephone. And of course, now we have got advanced versions of cell phones and, bandwidths and digital connectivity, etc., etc. So friends, this is something which I would like to definitely highlight. Purpose is something which actually fuels the scientific community as a motivation. So that is one. Second is the trustworthiness. See, I mean, you think about it. Any teacher whom you like, or another example I can give you is our parents, for instance. I mean, I know it's not that my parents, they have never scolded me. They have at times when I was small. I mean, if I had done something intentionally, something bad, I mean, we used to get scolding also sometimes. But then I always had this trust that my parents, they will always have they will do everything for our welfare. So that was the trust. And when that trust is there, people are going to rally around you. So trustworthiness is equally important. And of course, we are going to discuss during the course of the interaction, I mean, how we can improvise that trustworthiness. Inspirational. I mean, even if you have got purpose and trustworthiness, if as a leader of the scientific community, you are not able to inspire people who are around you, who are your subordinates, who are your colleagues, I mean, you won't be able to get more than 100% from them. So inspirational leadership is equally important. And that is why once you have got purpose, trustworthiness, you have got inspirational leadership, you are likely to be successful in the scientific research, whatever project you have been doing. Now, if you ask me, all these scientists, they had all these qualities, right? They were visionary with purpose. They were having trust of their people. They were inspirational. And because of all these three qualities, they were having tremendous fan following. And of course, they must have had the commitment by their followers. And that is why they were so successful, and whatever, exceptional work, what they have done in the field of their own chosen field, it was made possible. Now, I want to share with you one slide, which basically talks about that if you are not a very inspirational leader, what damage it can cause, right? And this is a data which has been taken from Forbes magazine. And this data basically tells that all those leaders who are below the 10th percentile on their ability to inspire and motivate others, the overall leadership effectiveness was barely 9%, just 9%. And percentage of leaders who are highly engaged such type of uninspirational leader, they are just 2.6%. And average engagement of direct reports, imagine, I mean, you have got research scholars, you have got lecturers. If as a professor, you are not very inspirational, the average engagement of these direct reports is barely 23%. And what is actually very threatening, I would say, 47% of these people, they would have kept one leg outside the door, that whenever they get the opportunity, they would like to leave that leader. So think about, I mean, these are the people, they are thinking about quitting. Why? Because the leader is inspirational. Probability of being a high potential leader. Now, such type of inspirational leader, their probability of becoming a high potential leader is barely 3%. And probability of being rated in the bottom 10% of the productivity, it is as high as 93%. So friends, please appreciate, you need to have purpose, you need to have trustworthiness, and you got to be inspirational. And then only you will be able to get the support from everyone, whatever, project you have been undertaking, right? With this, I will move further. And there is one question you may ask, why is it so that leadership skills needs to be learned by the scientific community? Now, with due regards to everyone, I do understand and appreciate that we have got brilliant leaders in the scientific community. I can vouch. I mean, when I was studying, in nematology, and I mean, my teacher, Professor Shamim Jarajpuri, is one of the best inspirational leader what I have seen. So not that leaders are not inspirational, but then vast majority I'm talking, because of their work, as compared to others, there is some arena where they need to work upon. And why this is so important? Because the well-being of the, I would say, human beings is completely dependent on the scientific community. Think about it. I mean, I have given you the example of COVID. I have given you the example of doctors. I have given you the example of tremendous, research which has been going on in the field of science and technology, because of which our lifestyle, our overall well-being is better. So this is one reason. Development of any society is completely dependent on the scientific community. Now, the only issue is, I mean, I can tell you, when I was working, I used to work for close to 10 to 12 hours within our lab. My interaction was with those 7-8 people who were in my lab. Mostly, my interaction with the outside world was little less, as compared to people who were from, say, arts faculty or commerce faculty. Their interaction, their social interaction used to be slightly better. So this has something to do with the work, what the type of work what we have been doing. We are mostly looking inwards. And that is one thing which, the data also says that those people who are working in science, technology, engineering, maths, as compared to non-STEM employees, they need to slightly tweak, they need to slightly hone up their skills on leadership, right? Another reason, which is very important, I mean, I'm sure everybody is familiar with the word VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We are working in this VUCA word. And what happens is, 50 years back, the type of leadership which was required, that time it was command and control. People used to command and people used to control. That was the era when things were more or less certain. In VUCA world, we really do not know what's going to happen tomorrow. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of anxiety. So when there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety, you need a leader who is an integrator and an energizer, right? So that is one shift which has taken place. Now, the issue is all those people who are in mid 50s, they were once upon a time relying on control and command. And they need to quickly shift from command and control to being an energizer and integrator. And that's one change in the leadership, which especially the senior professionals, they need to undertake. Because the youngsters, those who are coming, the new research scholars, those who are coming, they are very smart. They are extremely knowledgeable. They know the word much better compared to what we were knowing at that age. And therefore, it is important that you must energize them, integrate them, whatever work you are doing, and then you will find that you will be an excellent leader, right? Now, therefore, what it comes to is that a scientist with a proven leadership qualities actually can have a clear vision and objective. Secondly, he will ensure timely completion of projects. And of course, he will ensure collaboration by engaging and energizing. So with this preamble, I'm going to share these topics where I'm going to talk about in the next 45 minutes, myths about leadership, how you can define your vision, which is so important in the scientific research, building trust. Now, define your vision, we'll talk about the purposeness, what purpose you are going to have. Building trust is by in itself standalone topic. I mean, it's very important. And the next point number 3 to point number 9, these are the points which essentially captures the essence of inspirational leadership, where I'm going to share with you how you can cultivate emotional intelligence, how you can motivate others, what are the various powers of a leader, right? How you can manage a difficult subordinate. If you've got a difficult subordinate, a difficult research scholar, I mean, you can use a positional power. You are the professor, you are the HODs, and you can say, get lost. If you don't comply what I'm telling you, you are likely to lose your position. Well, 40 years back, 30 years back, that was the ideal thing, but not now. So again, that is not an inspirational leadership. So how are you going to tackle such people? By being an inspirational leader, that also we'll touch upon. Then giving feedback is very important, because if you don't give feedback, there will not be any improvement, right? And many times people, they are afraid of giving feedback because they feel if I give feedback, the person may feel dejected, which is not true. I mean, there's a method in which you have to give feedback, which is going to inspire him, fine? And then, of course, I will share one story, which will talk about how you can show gratitude, and that's it. And then I'm going to close this. Right, friends. So let me move further now. So there are many myths about leadership, right? So first myth is leaders are born, not made. Well, fact of the matter is I have not seen any leader who's not born. All leaders are born only, right? Now, the only thing is, just because you have been, you are born in a family of a leader doesn't make you a leader, except maybe some of the political parties in India I can talk about. Otherwise, the acceptance is not going to be. For becoming a good leader, there are certain qualities which a person has to improvise. So what are those qualities? The first thing is a good leader should have a good communication skills. Goes without any doubt. Why? Because if you want to convey the vision what you have, you must convey your vision in such a manner that it is endearing, it is very motivating. It should, create that sort of excitement among person. So if you have to do that, you need to be a good communicator, right? That is one. And when I say good communicator, I mean, I'm not talking about good communication in English, whatever language you are comfortable, but you must communicate in a very effective manner, right? Which should create enthusiasm among the followers, among your colleagues also. Second thing is the interpersonal skills. Please appreciate, friends, gone are those days when you could have done your work alone. You need the support of your colleagues also. So if you want the support of your colleagues, your interpersonal skills, they play a huge role. And I will give you an example, and you can think about it, what I'm saying. I have seen personally in my professional career that your knowledge as well as, your scientific prowess will take you in your ladder, in your career only up to a certain extent. Maybe you can become lecturer, maybe you can become reader. If you want to become professor, if you want to become dean, vice dean and, vice chancellors, you need to have excellent interpersonal relationships, because you must be able to get along with people, because you have to rally around in such a manner that everybody comes together and supports you. For that, interpersonal skills, that's very important. Same way, motivational skills. I have seen Professor Khusro, he was our vice chancellor when I was a student. And I can say without any out of doubt that he was one of the vice chancellor when I was a student who always motivated me. I mean, by merely listening to his talks, he was having the gift of the gab. He was very eloquent speaker. The manner in which he used to articulate his thoughts were really mesmerizing. So there are various motivational skills, and as I said, communication is also one way by way of which you can mesmerize the audiences. So these are some of the skills by way of which you can actually become a good leader. Secondly, people often say leaders rely on the formal authority. I mean, you need to have a tag, then only you will be effective. Not true. I mean, you would have, listen that there are many leaders, they are known as titleless leader. I mean, you will never even come to know, and they are highly successful. So if you want to be an effective leader, even in scientific community, what you have to do is you have to listen and grasp multiple perspectives. I mean, people have got brilliant ideas. I mean, I have got huge regards for the youngsters, those who are coming nowadays. They are brilliant. They have got brilliant ideas sometimes. Now, if we listen to them, we may also get some brilliant vision also. You have to use the persuasion to build consensus. Mind you, friends, this is something which I am highlighting time and again, that gone are those days of command and control. You need to have influencing skills, right? If you've got good influencing skills, you are likely to be much more successful leader. Seek expertise and feedback. Thirdly, very often we confuse between leader and a manager. And, people say leadership is giving vision. Fine. But think about it. I want to have a project, say from University Grant Commission. I mean, that's a body in, say, India. The project has come. Fine. And based on that project, there is certain vision which I had submitted to UGC, and based on that, they have given me the grant. Now the grant has come. Now I need to know how many people I need to staff, right? What are the various culture mediums I need to order, where I need to do. All these will be a part of the managerial job. Vision is, you have submitted the vision to the UGC, say University Grant Commission. Based on that, they have approved. So leaders and if you want to be a good leader, you also need to know what are the skill sets needed to be a good manager. So they are all interrelated, I would say. Though the job functions are different, but you need to be master in both. In leadership, as leaders, we know they set the direction, and managers, they plan and budget. So both things are essential. Leaders, they align people, but then as a manager, you have to organize staff. Leaders, they inspire, motivate, and as a manager, you have to, solve the problems. You need to control that in case the project is getting delayed, you have to raise the flags so that, whatever problems are there, whatever impediments are there, those impediments are taken care of. And lastly, leaders depend on personality. Well, very often people say, you need to be very authoritative, then only you will be successful, or you need to be very affiliative, then only you will be successful. You have to be democratic, then so these are all the, various leadership styles. All these leadership styles are needed at times. Only thing is, you need to know at what time you need to apply which leadership style. Authoritative leadership is also required sometime. And I will share with you, because if you don't apply that authoritative leadership, you are going to have lots and lots of problems. At the same time, if where affiliative leadership is required and you apply authoritative leadership, that's going to boomerang. So you need to know exactly what leadership style is required at which place. So that's what we are going to discuss that. Number two, you have to define your vision. Now, for a leader, defining vision is very, very important. And I'll give you one example. So why do you need a vision? Well, first of all, you need a vision because it clarifies the direction for future. Right? You know exactly what is the road, how you are going to progress on that. Once as a subordinate, I know that this is the path which I have to traverse. I will feel motivated, assured. So that's another advantage. Third advantage is, obviously, it will improve the efficiency. Now, I'll give you one example because I have seen Professor Anwar Bilgrami working on that problem how many years? 40 years back, 41 years back. And when I was thinking about it, that example actually struck my mind So I thought I'll just share with you. So first step, how you can define your vision. So you have to find out what is the opportunity. So if I give you an example that say in India, 40 years back, the crop yield was slightly less. And there were a lot of, parasites in the soils which were damaging the crops, right? So if that is the case, I will scan the literature. What are the, parasites because of which the crop yield is coming down? And I decide and I find out that, there are some nematodes, soil nematodes, they are responsible for this. Now, if I can reduce that, what benefits it's going to have to the society on by and large. So, then I'll work with my colleagues also to get more and more information. So this is step number one. Based on that, I draft a vision. So I say that fine, my first vision is, how to increase the crop yield through say biological means. Now, I don't want pesticides, everything, because that's going to be detrimental. So that's the first, vision statement I have created. Now, with that vision statement, my followers, my colleagues, they will understand that he wants to have some sort of intervention by way of which he wants to reduce the, those soil nematodes which are causing damage to the, to the plants, to the crop, and then of course that is through biological means. So this is very easy to picture. That vision statement people can understand. It should be compelling, of course, and it should be realistic, right? It should be focused yet flexible. Why? Because sometimes what happens when you start working on a problem, you come across some dead ends. You find that, look, it's not going to work. That time you need to have that flexibility that, okay, fine, I'm not able to do so, but still I will have slight tweak in my, the path what I was having. And with this flexible attitude, again, I will attend to that problem. Now, once you have done this step number 2, you have got one broad vision statement. Then again, you need to gather more and more feedback. You talk to your people. Look, this is something where I want to work. You have to listen to the feedback, what other people are doing. You conduct more research. So when you conduct more research on that, you come across that, okay, fine, there are some soil nematodes like Dorilamus who can actually, kill these harmful nematodes. So then based on that, you further change your statement slightly. And now you say reducing plant damage by parasitic nematodes through predatory Dorilamus. Something like that. You have mentioned that. So that gives the clear-cut indication how you are going to tackle this problem, right? So this idea should be clear in purposeful term. And again, it should be simple, because it has been seen, the simpler is the vision, the more buying you are going to get. So this is how the draft vision, the vision statement that is being worked out. Another thing is, this is fine, but how you are going to make others motivated and charged for this vision. There comes your communication skills. How you are going to communicate, whether you are going to communicate through, emails or letters, or whether you are going to communicate orally, your communication skills, they play a very important role in creating that enthusiasm among your people, right? So this is how you need to define your vision in your scientific research, whatever work you are doing. And there are plenty of issues which still we need to grapple with. Thirdly, as I've said, building trust. Trust, friends, this is something I very firmly believe. If trusting relations are not there, nothing is going to work, right? Very often people, what they do is, instead of having this influence, you can have trust only through influence. You cannot have trust through coercion. By threatening somebody to do something, you cannot have trust. The person will only do 60 to 70% of the job by which he can save his job. That's all. You are not going to get more than 100%. So trusting relations are very important. And as it's been mentioned here, every culture relies on trust for the effective relationships, right? Now, the issue is, what are the benefits of trust? We all know people will work harder and more creatively. Another advantage is people will take smarter decisions, right? Because if I know, if I've got trust that if I'm working, say, under Professor Anwar Bilgrami, and I've got this trust that he's going to support me, I will take that smaller risk on my own. I'm not going to go back every now and then, so that there is no time loss. Thirdly, you will also be able to resolve disagreement that arises inevitably. Now think about it. If you have got ever disagreement with someone, and if you have got trusting relationships, right, you will be able to resolve that. As long as I know, and I gave you that example of parents and some of the best teachers under whom you have studied, you will always be able to resolve that disagreement, because you know that by and large, this man is going to help me in my development. So as long as that conviction is there, absolutely no issues. And fourthly, of course, you are going to stay longer within that team, because you will enjoy that togetherness, that working relationships. So these are the advantages of building trust. Another thing is, if I ask you, trust is fine, you are telling me, but trust comes from what? How you can build up trust, right? Think about it. Now I'll give you example. Suppose I am learning a car driving. I don't know car driving, and I have joined some driving school, and the driver who's telling me how to drive car, he himself is not driving car properly. He releases the clutch with abruptly, and the car goes very fast. With jerks it is starting. Do you think I'm going to have any trust on him? No, I will not have any trust. So the first fundamental of developing trust in the professional arena where you are working is the competence. You need to be competent. I mean, if you are my boss, I must have this confidence that if I'm grappling with some problems, if I go to my boss, he will give me the solution. If I've got this trust, then most of the things are done. Problem is, sometimes due to some reason, when the subordinates, they find that their bosses, they are not extremely competent, then there is an issue. Then there's an issue of personality clash and many other things. The second quality, which is very important, is the character. So when I say character, I'm not taking any moral high grounds. What I'm saying is whether you are fair and honest. So if suppose I'm the professor in a lab, and there are, say, 8 research scholars, and one of the research scholars is my nephew, right? Do I treat that nephew also on the similar lines as I'm treating others, or there is some differential treatment? If there's a differential treatment, people are not going to like it, and then my trust with them will come down. So that is what I say. Character is, you need to be fair and honest, right? As long as you have got these two things, you are likely to be successful, right? And the advantage is how you are going to assess whether the person is competent or not. Basically, you have to just observe how the group is functioning. And second is how to wield influence. So these are two things which will tell about competence. And secondly, when it comes to character, well, a trusted leader basically knows what are the ethics involved, what are the moral, how you can make the moral judgment, whether your actions are matching with the judgments, etc., and whether you are able to influence others to act ethically. Basically, that example what I've given you, that's a very practical example. If you have got a team of, say, 7-8 people working in your research lab, how you are treating everyone, whether you are fair to everyone, that will determine your character. So as long as you've got these two fundamental characteristics, you will be able to have trust of your people, right? So that's one. Then comes how you're going to build character. Now, for that, you have to be a role model. You have to respect the work. You have to care about the quality. And of course, you have to be emotionally stable. You don't have to see. What happens is, when you are in the higher echelon of the organization, so suppose you are the HOD, you are the professor, it is possible that some of your subordinates may not be able to do things the way you want them to do. And there, sometimes people have seen they lose their composure. They fire people. They show their disappointment. Sometimes even if you're not firing, but if your expressions are written all over your face of your disenchantment, the other person will feel a little awkward. So you need to be emotionally very stable. So that's one. Now, if I ask you, fine, you have talked about competence, character, that these are the two essential elements for building trust. What to do in case the trust is breached due to some reason? How you are going to rebuild trust? And mind you, as a leader, it is your responsibility to rebuild trust with your subordinates, not the subordinates' responsibility. So that is one fundamental thing which I want to clarify. It's your responsibility as a leader, right? So how you can do that? As I've said, trust is competence and character. Find out the reason, find out the source, whether it is something to do with your competence or whether it has something to do with your character. Once you have found out the reason, then you need to assess the damage. How much is the damage? Can I, handle this problem on my own, or I need the support of someone else, right? Now, in case you find that you are the culprit, you are the source of the problem, one should have the humility to accept it. I mean, I can tell you, if you have got the humility to accept it and say, sorry, it was due to me, most of the problems you will find will be resolved very amicably, right? And in case you find that, no, the damage is so colossal that I alone cannot do that, I alone cannot handle that, then you need somebody else, maybe your boss, your friend, to actually pitch in and then try to solve that. Sometimes there are some problems in the, I would say, methodology, the way you are working. Sometimes there are a lot of bureaucracy in the system. If that is causing the problem, you need to address those things. So these are some of the ways in which you can rebuild trust, right? So this is as far as the trusting relationships are concerned. Fourthly, you need to cultivate emotional intelligence. Now, when I'm talking about inspirational leadership, I can't be more vocal than this, that emotional intelligence is the most fundamental thing which a good leader, an inspirational leader, must possess, right? So when I say, what do you mean by emotional intelligence? I mean, you need to have control on yourself. You need to understand what are the various triggers which actually makes me angry. What are the various triggers which makes me sad, etc., etc. And let me also tell you that a good leader need not to be most brilliant person than the team. It's not essential that you have to have the best of the best capabilities just because you are a leader. No, you may find some research scholar, some lecturer. He may be more knowledgeable, more intelligent, and that has something to do with the upbringing, the type of colleges that he has gone, the type of mentoring he got. So there could be many reasons, right? So one should not bother about it. Now, only thing is, you need to learn emotional intelligence, which will include self-awareness, empathy, very essential. I mean, I must understand that what the other person is going through, right? And of course, rapport with others. That these are the three things which are extremely important when you want to have that emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, I will just explain to you that you need to know exactly about yourself. Very often we do not know about our strengths, about our weaknesses, about our blind spots. There are a lot of blind spots. Unless we get the 360-degree feedback from others, which is de-identified feedback, many a times we are not aware what are my blind spots, right? So you need to understand your blind spots. And I'll give you, due to paucity of time, I don't want to give you so many examples. Otherwise, I will tell you, one of my blind spot was my punctuality. I was so punctual that I used to put off people. That if suppose somebody had come 5 minutes late in my meetings, I mean, my frustration, my disappointment was written all over my face, right? Then somebody pointed out that, look, you are absolutely fine when you say 9 o'clock means 9 o'clock. But please do understand, in a city like Bangalore, where there's so much traffic, in spite of the fact that we are starting, say, 1.5 to 2 hours before, but still sometimes we could be entangled in the traffic. So at least you need to have that sort of cushion. You sometimes don't say anything, but your frustration is written all over the face. That was my blind spot. I always felt punctuality is something which I was very proud of, but that strength was becoming my weakness when it came to interpersonal relations with my people. So these are some of the things which you need to know exactly. Now, IQ, we all know that is something which we get from our parents. This is transmitted through genes. But when it comes to EQ is something which you can hone up. which you can develop. That is something good when it comes to EQ, right? Now, when we are talking about self-awareness, I mean, what I understand is what I want to say is you need to understand your feelings, your emotions, right? And with that, only you should speak with conviction about your values, about your vision, right? Same way, you must do the SWOT analysis about yourself. And as I've shared with you, you need to know your blind spots. You need to know your strengths. You need to know what are your threats, everything, right, about yourself. And then, of course, you will be in a better position to take decisions. And I'll give you example. See, my self-awareness, and of course, this I realized quite late, I must say, in my career, that I was extremely good in theory, but I was not so good in practical, or maybe my interest in the practicals was slightly less. Because I remember that when I was studying in, say, class 12, we were supposed to pass H2S gas outside the chemistry lab. And instead of passing H2S gas, I used to go to some restaurant to have tea and bread pakoras. So that was my, I would say, seriousness about that. So this I realized quite late, that I'm very good in theory, but I somehow don't like these practical things. Now, you need to understand, because that will help you in deciding your careers, where you need to progress, etc., etc. So you need to know about yourself, self-awareness. Self-management basically talks about that you need to be very, I would say, rational in your thinking. It should not be gut-based decisions. I mean, you need to have data to decide on your decisions, right? Because once you do that, you will remain calm in the various stressful situations, because the data is going to guide you what you need to do that, right? So that is one. Another thing when it comes to self-management is that you will maintain high standards, and of course you have to set the challenging yet realistic goals. I mean, the goals need to be realistic yet challenging, right? Then when it comes to relationship management, which is also very important, you need to be insightful about others' talents and make them achieve. Now, in case you find somebody who is extremely competent, working within your team, working within your lab, you must give him the opportunity to flourish. It is possible that, suppose I am the reader, I mean, he is right now lecturer, but he is so, I would say, competent, he is going to overshoot me and he can become professor, and maybe a situation comes when I have to report to him. No harm in that. In any case, everybody has to report to someone else. And if you're reporting to someone who has worked in your team, trust me, that's the best thing what can happen. But the problem is sometimes our egos, they come in the way, and that spoils everything. And then you try to, and then your relationship goes for a toss. So never ever try to do that. Then, of course, able to identify when change is needed, and of course you have to move that. Now I move to motivations, right? So there are basically two types of motivation, internal and external. Internal is something intrinsic, which comes from within, right? Now, even if you make an appreciation in public of a person who has been doing some good job, I'm telling you, that is such a positive motivation, such a positive intrinsic motivation, that any amount of money is not going to give him, right? Only thing is, this appreciation has to be the right appreciation, and it should be done in public platforms, right? So that is something which I would always suggest, that every person must do that. If I've done something good, it should not be only confined in the books. It should be in the open. Same way, external motivation is where you give the monetary benefits, like, experience bonus, benefit packages, etc., etc. Now, when I'm talking about motivation, I must also run through some of the basic, the theories which are there in motivation. They are all divided into content and process. And due to paucity of time, I'm not going to go into details, but these are three major content theories. Maslow's theory, you must have heard, because it talks about that roti, kapda, makan. That's the first thing, physiological need. Then comes the safety, belongingness need, esteem need, and self-actualization. Because everybody will be falling in some stage here, so that is Maslow's theory, very common. Hertzberg theory talks about hygiene, that what are the factors which gives the satisfaction, and what are the factors which causes dissatisfaction. And of course, the Maclaurin theory talks about that people get motivated. Some of them, they will get motivated due to power. Some of them, they will get motivated due to recognition. Some people get motivation because of their affiliation, etc., etc. But one theory which I want to highlight, which is very important for everyone to understand, is the Vroom's expectancy theory. Very often we say, what is in it for me? Why should I do that? So this why should I do that has been explained by Vroom's expectancy theory. And it's a very popular theory, which essentially captures what? It says that before putting in an effort, a person will assess whether the support which is going to come, with that support, I'm going to accomplish the task which has been assigned to me or not. Once he sees that, yes, the support which is going to come is good enough for me to achieve my task, I will be positively motivated, and vice versa, negatively motivated, right? So if suppose I have been given a problem and I know that my boss, he has, given me this many grants, he has provided me this much literature, this is the support what I have got in my lab. With all this, I'm going to achieve my, say, PhD in 3 years. I'll be fully charged and motivated, and I'm going to go for that. So this is what the Vroom's expectancy theory in brief talks about, right? Now I move further, how to match your support. Now here, please appreciate, and I want to give you one example. I have seen one person, a close friend of mine, who had joined PhD, and he was given a very, very nice problem by his professor. But his professor was having a towering personality, right? He was extremely knowledgeable, extremely good person. But the only thing was that he was such a person where he said to this boy that, look, you don't have to come every now and then for any, guidance. You have to do on your own completely, right? You have been a brilliant student. You have been a topper in MSc. So I want you to do everything on your own. Now, this boy started, initially, he was extremely charged and motivated, started working on that problem. He tried to do various types of permutations and combinations which were required for him to get some results, but he was not able to do so. He used to go to the library, used to study extensively, because that time the Google was not there. And in spite of all that, he was not able to get the positive results. What happened ultimately, slowly and steadily, he started getting negative results. His enthusiasm, which was very high, came down, and there was a burnout, and he resigned from that PhD, right? So this is what happens. The whole problem here was that he was not given the right guidance, right? So whenever a person is new to the job, so suppose you are a lecturer and you have got a research scholar. The first thing is your guidance should be directive. Directive doesn't mean that you will insult. No, directive means you will give a clear-cut guidance. These are the steps which you need to follow. And then you report to me what has happened, right? So this is guidance. This is directive style, stage 1. As the person gains some experience, your style should be towards coaching. So what is the difference? In the first stage, you have said, look, Mr. So-and-so, these are the steps which you need to follow and come back with the results, what have come. In the coaching, you will again enumerate all those steps, but you will also say that in case you want any help, do let me know. Or what do you feel? Do you feel is there any other way in which you can do that, right? So that is one. Third is the supporting. Here you don't give directions. So here in the third stage, you are not telling that these are the steps. You say this is the problem. Tell me how you're going to approach this. Now, unfortunately, the example what I gave you, that particular professor, he put this boy in that supporting category, where he said, okay, fine, you want grant, you want this, fine, but ultimately you do the way you want. And what happened? It was disaster for him, right? Fourth stage is delegating. So when he is quite proficient in his research work, that is the time you can delegate. Now you can have your own vision and you can decide what you want. So this is what it is. Okay, so that is what I wanted to share with you. Now I touch upon what are the various powers of a leader. Well, as a leader, you have got various powers. You've got legitimate power, information power, expert power, reward power, coercive power. But
Pankaj, can I interrupt you for a minute?
yeah,
Some of the audience is not having a power presentation on their screen. Maybe there's some problem on your side, or it's not moving, or something is happening. So could you please just reset it, probably start working? And
okay, what I
just
will do once again, I will share. Sometimes what happens is the bandwidth is the issue. So sometimes the
yeah,
slide
could
moves
be.
little.
And also, if you can just reduce speed a little bit,
Okay,
so some of them
okay,
would be
sure,
able to
sure.
understand it much better.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Pankaj.
So I will
Go ahead, please.
stop and once again reshare. So let me once again reshare the screen. So again, you have to make me host, please. Make me host, then only I can share.
Okay, he's
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah.
You
So
got it?
thank you. Yeah, I got it. So hopefully now you can see the screen. Is it visible?
Yeah, I do. I think other audience may also be seeing it. Let me
So
see the,
what about
yeah,
others?
they responded, they are seeing it now.
Very good.
Perfect. Thank you
Nice.
so much. Go ahead,
Thank you.
please.
So what I was telling that as a leader, you have been endowed with various powers. Imagine if you're a head of the department, you have got the legitimate power by being the HOD. You have got the knowledge power because you have got definitely more knowledge as compared to, say, a research scholar. You have got the expert power because you are considered to be an authority on that. Reward power because you can actually, give some rewards to your students. Coercive power is the power of threat. Very often, sometimes, when you are not able to get the person aligned to your thinking and you find some dissent, people resort to coercive power. Now, the power which is very much required in today's world is the referent power, power of liking. If I like someone, I will do for him. So referent power is the power of influencing positively, right? So everybody must work on improving his referent power, power of liking, which is very important if you want to get the buying in from your colleagues, from your subordinates. So that is as far as the power of a leader is concerned. Now, in case you find that you have got a person who is little tough to handle, I'm sure all of you must have handled some difficult customers, right? Some difficult people, right? So this happens, right? So now what happens if and this happens because there may be some people, they don't buy your vision. They feel that, look, this is your vision, this is not my vision. Now very often when that is the case, what happens is when people are not able to handle such people, they resort to coercive power, power of threat. Do this, otherwise you will be fired. Now, fine, you can do that. But again, the problem is if this is the way, then the issue is that that person, you will not be able to inspire. You can fire, but you will not be able to inspire. And we are talking about inspirational leadership, right? In the scientific word. So how you can do that? First step is investigate the issue. You need to find out why is it so that this man is behaving like that. Now, sometimes what happens, and I'll give you the same example of that professor where he had put his person into a quadrant number 3, where instead of giving direction and coaching straight away, he had put him in the quadrant number 3. Now, what happens when the person is not getting positive results? He feels frustrated. And when the frustration sets in, then sometimes the manifestation of that frustration is in different ways. It happens in the behavior, it happens fighting with his colleagues, right? All these things. So you need to, first of all, investigate what is the matter. Second thing, then you need to find out what are the various, options do I have? Shall I send this person for some training? Shall I transfer this person from this lab to another lab? Shall I give him some less demanding job? You need to find out. Now, if you find that none of the options are going to could be implemented, none of the options could be implemented, then the third step is that you have to send a nice letter, call him for a meeting, and when in the meeting you have to say, look, this is the behavior what you are exhibiting, what damage it is causing to the organization, what damage it is causing to the department, what damage it is causing to the other fellow colleagues, and therefore this is not acceptable. And then you politely say that you tell me how we can resolve this. What are your options? And mutually you try to work upon that so that you are able to get his buying in onto the solutions. Don't try to thrust upon solutions on him, because if you thrust upon, that's a very common mistake which people do when they have got the powers. If you're going to thrust upon, people are not going to buy that, right? So these are some of the three ways. These are three ways by way of which you have to handle the problematical person. Lastly, giving feedback. Very often we are very scared to give feedback. Just now, Professor Anwar has told me you have to go slow. You are speaking fast. Now, this feedback is important for me. Why? Because ultimately I need to communicate with people. If this feedback is not given and I'm rushing through, and if my messaging is not getting transmitted properly, then my purpose is lost. So feedbacks are important, right? The only thing is, how do you give the feedback so that it does not infuriate the other person? You know, there is a style, there is a method of giving feedback, right? And let me tell you, one of my view directors, and this example I'm giving you from another arena, he always used to talk about feedback, that feedbacks are like you get up early morning and see yourself in the mirror, right? So when you see yourself in the mirror, when you get up from the bed, maybe your hair will be falling all over the place. Of course, not for people like us. I am almost bald, but whatever little hair I have got, they will be falling all over the place. I may not be looking good, right? Then I go inside the bathroom, I brush my teeth, I take bath, my hair, I'll comb my hair, and then again I see myself in the mirror. I look more presentable. So feedbacks also work like this only. And therefore, for effective working relationships, feedbacks are important. Then only the improvisation will take place, right? So the only challenge is, how do you want to give feedback? Feedback should be very customized one. Feedback should be with relation to task. It should never be on the personality. I mean, there's a difference between task and personality. Very often we say, you are like that. No, you should not say you are like that. You should say, this act of yours is not good. You need to work upon that. So that's the difference. So when you brand a person, he's not going to like it. But when you say that, look, you are doing this thing, this is not good. You need to work this thing in this proper manner. That is the right way of giving. And it should be very, very customized. Whenever you want to give any feedback, you have to have a very supportive environment. Not that in the lab, when there are 10 people working and you are giving feedback in such a manner that 9 other people are also listening. Now, that is what this person is not going to like. Because if you want to give a corrective feedback to me, it should be very customized, right? And then, of course, not only you have to give feedback, sometimes you have to take feedback also. You have given feedback, so you say, how do you feel about it? Is it okay with you? Now, I always say, whenever you have to give any feedback to any of your colleague, any of your research scholar, 4:1 formula always follow. What is 4:1 formula? Always appreciate 2 points, what this person is doing good. So before giving any feedback, minimum 4 things you need to identify which this man is doing well, right? So 2 things you appreciate, then you sandwich in between, you give a corrective suggestion, and again you cover it up with another 2 positive feedbacks. When you do like this, you will notice whatever corrective feedback you have given, he's going to implement that, right? So this is one way in which ideally one should give the feedback, right? Now I come to my last slide, where I want to share one story. I am greatly fascinated with this story, and this story belongs to one fighter pilot, Charlie Plum. Charlie Plum was the fighter pilot with the US Navy, and he was posted at an aircraft carrier, Kitty Hawk, during Vietnam War, right? Charlie Plum was a very accomplished pilot, and 74 missions he completed with aplomb. He completed brilliantly. It was during his 75th mission, when he was going to bomb the northern part of Vietnam, that his plane was shot by one shell from anti-aircraft gun, and he had to eject, and he landed in the enemy camp, and he was taken as a prisoner of war. For 6 years, he was kept in jail. And when the Vietnam War got over, he was released. He went back to USA, completed his service, and then he retired and settled in Texas. One day in the evening, he had gone to have dinner along with his wife in a restaurant in Texas. When he was having dinner, he saw there was one person, he was staring him. So, Charlie Plum felt a little uncomfortable and started concentrating on his dinner. But then he realized that this man was briskly walking towards Charlie Plum. And he said, "Hey, you are Charlie Plum, that fighter?" He said, "Yes." He said, "You are the same person, who was in that Vietnam War, whose plane was shot and he had to eject, and you were kept as a prisoner of war for 6 years." He said, "Yes, I am same Charlie Plum, but unfortunately, I'm not recognized you." He said, "Don't worry. I mean, you might not have recognized me, but I have recognized you." And then he gave his hand, and he started shaking Charlie Plum's hand vigorously. And he said that, "I'm glad that that day that parachute worked." Why? Because I was the person who was in charge of uploading parachutes in the fighter planes, because I was working as a sailor in that Kitty Hawk. So I'm glad that that day the parachute worked and you are alive. Charlie Plum writes in his autobiography that night I couldn't sleep. I was trying to visualize this person, how he would have looked like, wearing the white dress with the white cap with bow, and he was not able to place him. And then he said that it was only because, though he might have bumped with me umpteen number of times, because when everybody is posted on an aircraft carrier, you are likely to bump with each other. But still he said that I was not able to recognize him. Why? Because I was the fighter pilot and he was the sailor. Now, then he says that I could save myself, or God has saved myself mainly because of that parachute. And this parachute was uploaded by the sailor. So he says, similarly in life, you will find many parachutes. So he says, we need to have the ability of saying thank you. You have to show gratitude towards people. And this is something which I always, say that if suppose I was working or I was studying in AMU, Aligarh Muslim University, say 40 years back, there were so many people who were responsible for my successfully, completing certain degrees. There were lab attendants who used to provide material on the basis of which I was working. There was a person who used to sweep the AMU department and used to keep that AMU department so spick and span. So with all these, infrastructure which was provided by these people, I was able to complete this. So, ladies and gentlemen, the point which I want to highlight is, if you want to be a successful leader in whatever spheres, we need to have this ability of showing gratitude. With this, these are the points which we have touched upon, and I want to thank you for being the patient listener, and I will stop here, and in case there are some questions, I would love to take them. Over to Professor Anwar Bilkami.
Thank you very much, Pankaj. It was really very fascinating lecture, and for us, at least today, you are our Charlie Plum, because we have really, inspired after listening such a beautiful lecture with some really good examples, which audience have liked it a lot, a lot. I mean, the comments that I have received, they really, have appreciated and liked your lecture on how to be a leader, and that's a good topic. But I have one question which came from Professor Nidal Abul Hamda. And his question is, do you have specific recommendations how to make self-training to do that one, basically? And what he means is, he is not angry person, I know him, but this is how he put that question. I mean, how do I control my anger sometimes? So it means that is for general public, not for him. He's a very cool guy, I know him. So do you have anything to say about this?
So I will give you my example.
I
was a person who was always in a hurry, right?
Yeah.
And I had very strong convictions when I was a man manager, 20 years back. And if I share with you one incident to give you the answer, once some 3 persons, they came in my meeting late and I fired them. And they were all senior people, 10 years elder to me. And one person told me that, Pankaj, firing is fine because I have come almost 1.5 hours late, but I wish you had asked me the reason. And that struck me. So I asked, what's the reason? He said, you didn't ask me, so I'm not going to tell you. And, during lunchtime, I asked, they didn't tell me. Tea time, I asked, they didn't tell me. Ultimately, I went to their hotel to find out the reason. And then they told something that, look, we had vomiting, 2 of them, they had vomiting, they vomited some blood, and the 3rd person had taken to a doctor. And then I realized, oh my God, still they came for the meeting, and here the area manager was firing them. So what happens is, it has something to do with your self-introspection, honest self-introspection. When I say honest self-introspection, think about it. What are your strengths? What are the things where you feel you are good? And what are your pain points? What are the things where you lose your control? Very often we lose control on those where those acts of the people don't comply with my value system. So here my value system was, I need to be punctual. And if that's not complying, but then you need to be empathetic there. If the person has come late, what is the reason? So to summarize this, self-introspection, identify, what are the strengths, what are your weaknesses. And I will suggest that there is a Johari window concept. If you Google it, you will find there is a Johari window concept, which is very good for developing your interpersonal relationships. It basically talks about four scenarios, right? And one scenario is there are blind spots which people have, which people don't know. The person doesn't know, but the other people, they know. So if you are able to iron out those blind spots, you will be able to have better relationships. And Johari window concept is something very nice concept in order to build relationships.
Right. Thank you for that, Pankaj. I have another question coming from Dr. Irfan. And the question is, did you ever face any leadership challenge, and how did you remove it, just in case if you have faced it anytime in your career?
I have faced a lot of leadership challenges, lots and lots of leadership challenges.
Can we know just couple of them?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
how did you resolve them? Because most of those problems are, common, and I think every leader faces similar problems, at one time or another. So just a couple of them, not many, just 1 or 2.
So one leadership problem I will share. I mean, this is something related to sales, but then I can share with you. See, sure. When in 91, that was a big challenge for me. In 91, when I came from Uttar Pradesh, there's a province here, to Madhya Pradesh, the tax structures were very different, right? 3% tax structure was in MP and 7% was in UP, and a lot of goods, they used to travel from MP to UP. So when I got promoted and I came to MP, people were saying that now you're going to have rollicking time because the only tax structure is just 3%. But when I went there, I realized that 40% of the sales on paper was actually false sales. It was not happening in Madhya Pradesh. It was happening in Uttar Pradesh. And everybody was hand in glove in that whole, game.
Right.
Initially, I felt trapped. The type of things which were supposed to be done were not very ethical. And, one night I had severe headache and severe vomiting. And these were some signs of some hemorrhagic leak or something, aneurysms. And next day I decided, come what may, I'm going to confront this problem. And I confronted this problem head on by being fully aware that the consequences could be that I could be transferred with immediate effect, but I was ready for that. So sometimes when you're confronted with this type of problems, you have to take the bull by horn and be ready for the consequences. If you're ready for the consequences, most of the times people will be able to understand your perspective, and once the people are able to understand your perspective, and things are then more or less correct. Because when I explained to my bosses, things were taken in the right way, and then of course they understood the gravity of the problem and they resolved that.
Oh, just one last question. I think we have already got late, but that question is from me. And mostly I just ask simple questions. And the question is curiosity, basically, how social influences, make difference in the, a scientist becoming a leader, of course, scientific research, and social influences are everywhere, and affect all kind of professions in one way or other. So what do you think about those influences hurting or benefiting scientific leadership?
See, social influences are there, no doubt about it, and they do impact to a certain extent. But the only thing is, when it comes to scientific research, see, the things which are fundamental in scientific research, your competence, your character. Social influences will affect your character. They will not impact your competence. Competence is something which, of course, it's entirely. When it comes to character, social influences affecting your character, that is where you need to have demarcation. That, look, this is something which is acceptable. This is something which is not acceptable. I mean, there are certain things which I don't have to buy, whatever social customs, whatever social things are there, because that's not good for the humanity. I mean, if I want to portray a particular character, if I want to be fair to our people, I mean, I always meant that, look, I need to be fair to my persons. I mean, come what may, I may not be an excellent leader, but I will be fair to my people, come what may, right? Because I knew that I have got many issues when it comes to certain behavioral traits, like, which was basically related to your anger management, your expectation mapping, because I was a workaholic person and I always wanted people to work like that, right? So those were the issues which were there. But you need to have some demarcation that certain values, fine, but beyond that, if that's going to affect my working, that's not acceptable.
Okay, one last question just received. So just in one word, you can give us the answer whether the scientific leadership or any leader should be a transformative or perspective.
Good question and difficult one.
It came from one of my colleagues. So
okay,
just in one word, you can.
I would say transformative because of the VUCA word.
Okay, great.
Because of VUCA.
I think that's the best answer we had today. So with this, we'll wind up this session, and I would like to thank Pankaj Srivastava for giving this interesting talk and bridging the gap between scientific leadership and team membership. That is why we need scientific leadership. So with this, I would like to thank you, Pankaj, on my behalf and on behalf of all the audience and KU faculty and students for giving them such a nice and wonderful lecture. And thank you so much.
And Khuda Hafiz to everyone. Bye-bye. Would love to be again a part of such interesting discussions.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take good care of yourself.
Bye-bye.
Bye.